So I saw the Netflix Frankenstein tonight. Now, while I am recording this in my home, I did actually see it in a theater. I was with my father when we went to see it, and so I had to wait until I was home to actually record my review proper rather than recording it in the parking lot. And plus, it was starting to snow, so I had to get home rather expeditiously. Now, for my usual seizure warning for these films, there is a sequence in the middle of the film, and it's quite obviously the most important sequence, one of the most important sequences of the film, that features a lot of flashing lights and strobe effects. Anyone who knows of any Frankenstein adaptation can probably imagine what type of scene I'm talking about. So, those of you who have photosensitive epilepsy, to whom are sensitive to that sort of thing, you may want to do what Netflix expects you to do and watch it on the small screen for your own safety, as much as I hate to admit it. But sadly, that was something that does give me a bit of concern, so consider that kind of the official warning, whereas, yeah, watch it on the small screen, as much as it hurts my soul to say that. Now, on to the review proper. Those of you who followed me way back when I was doing stuff on YouTube, you may recall that I did a series of videos on my YouTube channel called Monster Clash, where I compared classic films with their more recent remakes. And the very, very first episode I ever recorded of that series was on Frankenstein. So, to say that I'm invested is a bit of an understatement. And so, when it comes to something like Frankenstein, and then a filmmaker like Guillermo del Toro, who is known for evoking really effective gothic imagery, it feels like a match made in heaven. And honestly, that's more or less what we got. But I will definitely say this: do not go in expecting this to be an uber faithful adaptation to the original novel by Mary Shelley, because it does take a number of liberties with the story that it's telling. But I would argue that the liberties that Del Toro takes with this come from a very deep, visceral understanding of the underlying themes of the novel, where, yeah, you've got some characters that are essentially smushed into one, or you've got some new characters added in place of other characters, and you have certain beats that are in place. For the most part, it is very thematically faithful to the original story by Mary Shelley. And it has like this deep understanding of the overall themes, even with some of the liberties it takes, especially towards the end of the story. And honestly, I think that's the best way to describe it, is that it very much feels very similar to Francis Ford Coppola's take on Dracula, where you can tell a lot of research went into it to make it as faithful as possible, but it also felt the need to take certain liberties and make certain departures to better tell the story for the medium it was being presented in. And when it comes to the overall visual style, it very much is a quintessential Guillermo del Toro experience, where you have a nice use of color, a nice use of gothic imagery that is very much seeped into every frame of this film. And even just right down to the costume design, you have some very iconic looks that very much convey the character. And so it very much is exactly what you'll expect if you were to compare it to Guillermo del Toro's other work, like Crimson Peak, for example. It has a very similar visual style to Crimson Peak, and it also makes effective use of the color red in a very similar way. It's just slightly different in terms of what red represented in that film versus what the color red represents in this film, where it very much represents a couple of things. It kind of dwells on the idea of it representing kind of the sin of Frankenstein, but also the ambition, the twisted and warped ambition that he has when it comes to what he's trying to do, because that's what a Frankenstein story is about. And you definitely see some shades from across the vast cinematic legacy of Frankenstein adaptations. You see elements from the Universal films, you see elements from the Hammer films, you even see elements, I would argue, even from the Kenneth Branagh film, and even some of the other adaptations that have been made in the intervening time. You can very much tell that this is a film made with love and passion, and it oozes from every frame. When it comes to the acting, I mean, you pretty much have a really good top-notch cast. I mean, you've got Oscar Isaac as Dr. Victor Frankenstein, Baron Victor Frankenstein, technically, and then you've got the monster played by Jacob Elordi, and so you have a very strong central cast, and there's acted really, really well, and it also hits a lot of those same beats that further reinforces the original central themes of the original novel. And so it's well acted, it's well constructed, and if you're able to see this in a theater, I highly recommend you do so because it looks absolutely gorgeous on the big screen. And so, yeah, it's an amazing film. It's basically, you get exactly what you expect from an adaptation of Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro. Now it makes me low-key kind of hope he decides to adapt The Vampire by John Polidori, because I imagine he would probably do something really amazing with that as well, especially if he wants to continue doing these very gothic sort of stories that follow in kind of this Byronic tradition. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the Netflix Frankenstein. I highly recommend it, and if you're able to see it in a theater, do so. It looks gorgeous. And yeah, now if you excuse me, I'm going to try to finish writing those short stories that I keep saying that I'm writing and slowly driving myself insane.